Great to see this beautiful group of leaders here. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Shauna Sobers. I'm going to be your moderator for today. I am currently the Director of Student Athlete Development at University of Texas at Austin. Woo, yes, hook 'em, hook 'em. And I'm also a two-time author and a TEDx speaker. So let's get going today. We have a powerhouse panel of amazing women with us here today, and I'm so excited to kick us off. And in order to do so, I'm going to have them do a brief introduction of yourself, who you are, and what do you do. Let's get started with it.
Okay, am I on? Did you turn me on? I haven't my mic. So I'm Gaddis, and in 1989 we were in a terrible recession, and so what do? Start a business. I cashed in a $16,000 IRA. That's all I had, and I started a little ad agency that, by the time I sold it in 2019, was the largest woman-owned independent advertising agency in the United States. And today, love teaching. I'm very involved at UT. I teach a program called Women Who Mean Business, which you should check out. It's through McCombs Exec Ed. And I'm an artist because I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Studio Art, and I'm a working artist as well. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Steckleberg. I am currently the CFO of Zoom Video Communications, that you all probably became well acquainted with over the last few years. I used to have to explain what that company was, but not anymore. And I am a very proud graduate of McCombs back in 1991. I have a master's in accounting.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Tarleton, and I graduated from McCombs about 20 years ago and have spent about 20 years in tech marketing roles, and over the last 8 to 10 years moved into CEO roles. As a woman in tech CEO, I've been through a great deal and happy to share and look forward to learning from this great audience today and this great panel today. Now I work in private equity. I just left operating roles and have moved into private equity, so I'm adjusting to big transition at the moment.
Hello, everyone. My name is Indra Gutierrez, and I am also a McCombs alumni. I graduated with my executive MBA in 2021, and I have my own construction company called Gutier. We specialize in commercial and industrial construction, and I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you.
Hi. Ooh, so close. Is that okay? My name is Ramy Brook Sharp. Is this a little? I'm sorry. Okay. I don't want to bust everybody's eardrums. What brought me here is my son actually goes to UT, so that's how I'm associated with Texas. So very excited to be here. But any excuse for me to come down and visit is great. I have a clothing line called Ramy Brook. It's a women's contemporary brand. And I started the company in 2010 in my bedroom. Worked out of there for about 3 years while I was figuring it out. And then moved to the Garment Center in New York and have been building the brand ever since. And it can be found in most of the major department stores: Saks, Neiman's, Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom, Shop. So I'm still on my journey, but I'm happy to be here and talk about it.
Yes. And certainly, if you like her outfit today,
Oh yeah,
all
it's
of
like,
that can be purchased.
yeah.
So heads up on that. I gave her a compliment. I'm like, okay, I might be wearing that.
Yeah.
Next. Can you believe the talent in this room? I guess we can now. So we're so excited for today, and I want to make sure to let you all know that this panel specifically was polled by our KS Wheatley group, and this was the most demanded. You can see by the attendance in the room that we are waiting with bated breath to hear about your experiences here. So we have limited time today. A lot of the questions were compiled by our KS Wheatley group, but I also threw in some questions based on my resilience tree model. So I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to those questions, but let's get started with this one. And maybe I'll ask Kelly to get us started with this one, but what is the best way to support other women that are breaking barriers in business?
So thank you for that. I think there's two things that I would say. First of all is just seek them out. You will be amazed at the opportunities to seek out women-owned businesses. As you can hear, there's many of them here today. So always look for those opportunities, or I look for them when we're interviewing in roles. I always want to make sure there's someone on an interview panel that looks like them so that other women can see what the opportunity is ahead. And then the second thing that I would say, I saw this quote recently, I thought it was really great, is reminder as women, we are all here to support each other, and that we should look at each other as inspiration and never as competition, right? If one of us is winning, we are all winning. So just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'll open it to the rest of our panels if anyone else has an answer for that one. No? Okay, great. All right, how about this one? What do you believe to be the best way for a woman to combat barriers as an individual in a male-dominated space?
I think the private equity one should answer that one.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'll start. So I became the CEO of Retail Me Not. I don't know if anyone's heard of Retail Me Not, about 8 years ago. And there was kind of shock and awe in the community when that happened, mostly because I was the CMO. So moving from CMO to CEO is an unusual jump, but also there's also generally logically male choices and CFO choices instead of the CMO. And I think one of the things I've always done well is I believe I can do a whole lot more than I actually can. There's something about my confidence barrier that apparently is incredibly high. I don't mind speaking my mind, because at the end of the day, if you're quiet and you don't necessarily share your beliefs, your goals, your objectives, your views, I can't sleep well at night. And so I think I've been able to break barriers because I can't help myself but speak my mind. And oftentimes you're surprised at how much momentum you can get behind you because of how few people have the confidence to do that. And so I think many of the ways that I've grown momentum as a leader, not only in tech as a woman in Texas, but also in private equity, is I'm just simply not shy, and I'm not really scared of the risk. I wouldn't say that was true 20 years ago. And I think we'll talk a little bit about what I wish I had done younger, but I will say that confidence, that willingness to just take the risk and speak your mind goes a long way.
absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would like to add, since I do work in a very male-dominated industry, and it's really, as she mentioned, be very confident and do not apologize for who you are and what you stand for. And stay strong and push through, stay true to your values despite the challenges that you're going to receive backlash, because sometimes men are not comfortable having a woman in command. So you're going to have those challenges. So you have to stay strong and true and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I love it. All great, great advice. And it's the small things too, even in the way we write or when we enter a room, using word choices like the word just. Oh, I just came by to, and those sort of things as well. Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. So there's 4 components to this resilience tree that we're going to work through today. One of them is roots. And roots is all about how do we get nourished? How do we refuel? How do we escape? How do we, pause, hit that pause button? So this next question is, what are ways that you all refuel, take care of yourself, set boundaries, or unplug?
I can answer that.
Yes.
I grew up in what we call the country. I grew up in a small town in East Texas, and I still have the privilege of owning a ranch not too far from here. And if it wasn't for that opportunity to get out in the country, just open my heart and my eyes and just get away from just the absolute frenetic sometimes things that are going on, I don't think I could do it. And the other piece of this is that I'm an art major from the University of Texas, not a business major. And so I've been able to return to my roots as an artist in the last few years. And there's something, and I paint from nature, I paint from life, and I love that. And so that is what really kind of fuels my engine these days, because when I can create something and someone likes it, or I find my painting hanging somewhere in Spain, which we just shipped one over there the other day, it means so much to me. And so finding that you've just got to find a space. And, if you can't be out in a big ranch or whatever, just, that moment, just get away for just a few minutes. And nature to me is always that way because it never fails and there's always something new. Now, I'll tell this real quick and I'll let the other panelists answer, but I have some walks I do at our ranch, and I could go way off in different places, and sometimes I explore new trails, but usually it's kind of the same walk a lot. And I'm so intrigued by every time I take that walk, how I'll see something completely different. Maybe I've walked that trail 1,000 times, but I'll see a different twig, a different leaf, a different rock, a different this or that. And it's just something about it that's just kind of piques your curiosity about look how much is out there that we just overlook every day because we hurry by something and don't realize a beautiful thing is just right there under our nose. So get out the country, get out in the world, and take a deep breath.
Yeah, it sounds like it really grounds you, and it provides you a center to come back to, and then go back out again. Enjoy, yeah.
Yes, no, I would like to add, the way I re-energize is, working out, and that could be a spin class, HIIT class, or taking my dog for a walk, out in the country or at the park. And then the way that I really do set boundaries is by having a schedule. So I have a set schedule of working, socializing, and resting. And I stick to my schedule, and that's how I'm able to accomplish everything that I have to do on a daily basis without really, interfering with my personal well-being. I can accomplish all of my professional goals while also, doing it in a healthy way without being burned out.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to add?
Well, I was going to say I don't do a great job actually with my downtime. It's I think a little bit harder because it's a evolving, growing business, and so everything I do revolves around Ramy, Brook, day, night. Mm-hmm. My husband works with me too, so I see him during the day, and then we go out to dinner. So it becomes all encompassing, which is great on one end, and on the other end, it's all encompassing. Mm-hmm. So for me, I also enjoy working out, but I also try to do it with friends. So this way, I have a social life. So it's doing something healthy for me, but also getting to enjoy the people in my life who I don't get to see because I miss those birthday lunches or I miss those dinners. So anything with my downtime, I try to incorporate with other things that I love. I'm still working on it, though. That's not one of my strengths. But
Yeah, no, I think that's so important to recognize that what works for one person doesn't have to work for everybody. And so hopefully in the audience, as they're sharing what works for them to take a break, you're thinking, wait, what do I do? So that we can make sure that we build that resilience in ourselves as well. Thank you so much. All right, so the second piece of the resilience tree is branches. So who are those people that believe in you, believe in your potential, tap you on the shoulder, and help you see what could be before you? But in order to have those branches, you need to reach out and accept help. So here's the next question. What does reaching out for help look like? And how do you accept help from others? Two-parter. Who wants to get us started?
yeah. I mean, I could start because I needed a lot of help. It was an industry I went into and had no idea what I was doing. I was in advertising out of college, had 3 kids, raising my kids, and then all of a sudden decided I couldn't find a sexy top. So living in New York, it is a big garment industry. And it turns out that when I started telling my friends or family what I wanted to do, they all knew someone I should speak to. And that's what I did. I just pounded the pavement, and I brought my notepad with me, and I was connected with some incredible women. One of them used to own the store Scoop. I don't know if you remember that brand, but her name's Stephanie. She couldn't have been nicer. This other girl, Jennifer Miller, who's a jeweler. So I just really reached out to anybody who would help me. And I used to think that nobody wants to help. Why would they want to speak to me? But that is exactly the opposite of what happened. And I find that women really want to help other women, and just don't be afraid. And the worst thing they could say is no, or I don't have time. And also now I try to give back as much because I felt so much love and help from everyone else around me. So I like to pay it forward. So those are my branches.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else?
I think it's hard sometimes to admit you need help, right? So just making sure you have people around you that you trust, that you feel super safe with. For me, like I have some really close friends and some family members. And help might just be, I just need to go play with my little niece for a little bit and sort of disconnect and have that perspective. So I think it's just really important to have people in your life that you trust, because you might need to share things that I can't share at work, or I can't share in different forums. So just being thoughtful about who you really trust in your life.
Absolutely.
Can I throw in something there? So what you're saying is what I call in my book, I wrote a book, Cowgirl Power, about Rough Riders. It's the people that absolutely, they love you, they've got your back, and they will tell you the truth. But the piece of that that's most important is something that I have a belief that women don't always think of the same way as men do. And that's this word reciprocity. And so if I do something for Kelly, I mean, maybe she'll do something for me, and I'm not afraid to ask her to do something for me if I do something for her. And so we need to start thinking more about that. Men intuitively do that. It's like, hey, if I get you that deal, well, maybe you're going to pat me on the back next week and get me this deal or whatever. But women don't always think of it that way. They're too timid to say, yeah, I need your help and I'll help you, but I'll help you. And so when you're asking for help, I found it really interesting. Some young people have come to me and said, what can I do for you, Mrs. Gaddis? And I think, wow, that's really mature for them to do that. So, anytime you're asking for help, kind of always inject too, is something I could do for you. And that's what builds that relationship, that trust and that willingness to help you, because I think, wow, maybe there is something there I could learn from. So that's my 2 cents on how to get help.
Absolutely. And she said it real fast, but just in case you missed it, she has a book. It's called Cowgirl Power.
And the subhead of that is how to kick ass in business and life.
Exactly.
Just cowgirl.
It is also on Audible. So for those of you riding in the car, yes, absolutely. Awesome. So what I'm taking away from that is, ask for help, and also be careful who you go to for help. And maybe the help is not necessarily in your organization, but there's help outside so that you can go back to the organization and take some of that advice and take it into action, right? So
Can I add one quick thing on
please.
that? Keep an eye out for your sponsors. And that's a little bit of that's Gay's point to some extent. I'm notoriously terrible at asking for help, and I'm also bad at networking. I don't believe in superficial conversation. It's not that I don't believe in it, I'm just bad at it, to be honest. But I have picked people my whole life, and I have found that, like, if you look closely, you'd be surprised at how many sponsors are sitting there waiting for you to ask. Just look a little closer to see who's sitting there waiting for you to ask and who's putting the branch out, because some of my biggest risks and my most rewarding changes in my life have come from following or going along with a sponsor's recommendation, and I've been really surprised at how rewarding that's been. And I never asked for help because, again, I'm bad at it, but it was there and I leapt, and it was really rewarding.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think that goes a little bit with what Ramy was saying too, is if you don't tell people what you're aspiring to, then they can't even offer to help. You wouldn't even know what help is there.
Yeah.
So beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. All right. The third component of the resilience tree model is fruit. Okay. So we got the roots, we've got the branches, now we have the fruit. Fruit is about boundary setting, right? And it's about when do you give, when do you not give? When do you need to hibernate so that the fruit that you give can be nourishing to others and not bitter and attitudinal maybe, right? And so here's the question for this one. We're going to start with Gay on this one. Heads up. When, how, and how often do you give back to spaces that pour into you?
I grew up with that mentality. From the time I can remember as a child, my parents were giving back to something. And we were not wealthy people. I'm not talking about big donations and that kind of thing. Just literally giving back in our community, helping people and doing things. So it was just ingrained in me that that's how we live. And so from even the very beginning of me starting my business, I was asked to volunteer and do all this stuff. And I thought, oh, gosh, how in the world am I going to do that? I'm trying to grow this business. Every time I did, I grew from it. I networked. I got so much out of it. And so I've always tried to take time somehow to give back to anything that means anything to me. And so that's why today I'm so involved at the University of Texas. For years, I was so busy with my business, I couldn't go over there very much. I call it over there. But now I'm spending a good bit of time teaching, working on programs, and, I'll be the incoming chairman of the board of Texas Exes, and it's a very time-consuming job. And they don't pay you for these things. Well, some things, if you're teaching, it's a little different a little bit. But it's mainly just your time and your volunteerism. But it means a lot to me. And when I can see the results of lives being changed, I mean, just right there, it's the best gift you can ever give yourself. I mean, nothing is more beautiful than seeing something that you did because you volunteered or you gave your talent or your special skill to a group that needed it, and then the fruit comes and you see it, and it is just absolutely. My mom always said, if you're feeling down, Gabe, she says, just go out and do something for somebody else, and I'll always give you a lift.
Absolutely. And aren't we glad that they came and gave us of their time today? Let's do that. Yes, thank you. Anyone else want to answer that one? Nope. Okay.
They said it very well.
Yeah. You're like, echo that. All right. How about this aspect of it? How do you determine when it's time to say no and to not give of yourself? How about that one?
No is a complete sentence. Nelson Mandela said that, by the way. But he said, you don't have to explain. If you don't want to do something, no. Period.
Yeah, I think I look for opportunities that I think I'm going to bring some value, because sometimes you get asked to do things that I don't necessarily feel like I'm an expert in or that I really have something to say. And so I will just politely decline because I don't feel like I'm probably the best person for that.
Yeah, so seeing if it aligns with your values, your mission, your goals, and that'll kind of help you sort through what things to say yes and no to.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Awesome. All right, here comes the question that's been talked about a little bit. What is a piece of advice you would give your younger self? I'm going to throw it to Marissa.
I said this a little bit earlier. I spent maybe the first 15 years of my career just being really comfortable. I met my husband, I had babies, I was really well taken care of and in the companies I worked for, and I just sort of dug in. And that, I think that created a staleness and lack of urgency, lack of curiosity, lack of drive for me. And when I speak to young people now, I think the most important advice I wish I had followed was to just get really uncomfortable a little bit more frequently. Mm-hmm. So you can say take risk, you can say don't be scared of failure. There's many ways people will articulate that, but I can't stress enough how much you learn through change and through taking risk, at least I do. And so I think one of the most important things I think you can do early in your career is just get super uncomfortable, because failure is actually a blessing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Fail 1,000 times, because that getting up is where the success is going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. Kelly, did you have something to add to this one?
Well, I think following along those, I've also had ups and downs, as we all do along the way, and I think telling myself, it's always going to be okay. It's always going to be okay. You might be in the down part of whatever you're experiencing, but it's always going to be okay. And I think that's hard for us to remember sometimes, but if you know, like, I wouldn't be anywhere else than I am right now, and I'm thrilled to be here, and you just have to remember that as you're going through some of those things.
Right, absolutely. I know I have students who will say, I don't want to take a step backward. And I'm like, I'm a dance teacher as well. And I'll say, well, that's part of the dance. Is going backward or staying still for a minute, as well as going forward. And so that's all part of the journey. And so, all right, here we go. The fourth and last component of the resilience tree is the environment. So, okay, you got the roots, you have the branches, you have the fruit. The fruit drops, and it continues through the cycle, right? So the environment could be what you put into it, but it's also the atmosphere and, all of that kind of thing. So here's the question for this one. Dun, dun, dun. Was there ever a time when you had to leave an unhealthy environment? Because there's times when you have to uproot and replant somewhere else. So if you did have to leave an unhealthy environment, what were the clues that it was time to go? Indra, can you get us started with that one?
Yes, sure. So I would say for me, it was, it was my direct, boss. I think it's important for the person that you're reporting to have an interest in your career and growing you. So for me, it was the moment I didn't feel like they were investing in my career and growth development, it was time for me to go. So you either change departments, change supervisor, or you're going to leave or leave the company. So I think it's very, very important to have, managers that really support you and that are there to cheer you on, to give you that constructive feedback, to help you grow. So I would say that was my experience.
Maybe did you have?
So for me, it's I believe leadership starts at the top, and if you are a good, positive leader, everyone who works with you will also follow suit, and that the culture is so important. And it's my company, so it's not. I can't leave. But there are people who are more toxic in the company, and they don't belong there. So, and a smaller company may not be for everyone. Corporate structure may not be for everyone, or that's what somebody needs. So it's also important, no matter where you stand in that tree or where you stand in that company, that you understand like who's running it and what the values are. Mm-hmm. Do they value family? Do they value personal time? Do they have music in the office? Whatever it is that works for you. So it's important that you surround yourself by people who lift you up. For me personally, I want everyone to know we're growing this together. It's still a younger company, and I want everyone to feel like I do. And if they don't, it just may not be the right place for them. Mm-hmm. So.
Absolutely. It's so important, especially as you're searching to pick up you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you, and recognizing what's going to make the right fit. Okay.
I'm going to say something pretty outrageous, so just hang on to your seats here. This comes right out of my book. And I have this thing in there, and I have to say sometimes you have to shoot the assholes. And I mean it, because that's the only way to put it sometimes. And I'm going to say in the context, yes, toxic people sometimes get in your organization, and that's a mess. But there were times, and I'm the company, that we had clients who just were intolerable. And all of our clients were wonderful. We picked great companies. We loved working with them. But every now and then there would be one that was so horrible, and you would just feel it, and I could see my teams just getting drained, and they would dread that phone call, or they would complain, and it was just pulling down the entire organization. And realizing maybe that client was contributing $8 million in revenues. It didn't matter if it was that bad. I would have to have the serious, fierce conversation with the client saying, you know what, we're not going to let you down, but we're going to ease out. And we're going to phase out. And literally, once I would do that, I didn't have to do it often, but I would denounce to the staff, and it was like just this veil was lifted off of them, and this horror, and they were just cheering, excited, and ding dong, the witch is dead, and the whole thing. I mean, and so it's healthy sometimes to weed the garden, and one time I had a creative director who says sometimes the weeds just pull themselves from the garden. Isn't that great? But not often. You usually have to give them a little help. So if it's a person in your life, or if you just have to face up, and it's hard because for many reasons to have those conversations and to find a way to disengage. But you have to do it, or it can absolutely ruin you and the people you work with.
Absolutely. Make sure to get it from the root too.
It'll come back.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Awesome. Okay, so what do you, and I'm giving this to everybody, and then heads up, we're going to open it up for some from Q. No, we're not going to do that. Just kidding. We're not doing that. But they are going to stay after, so you can come up. So what do you need in an environment in order to thrive? Final wrapping up thrive advice. What do you need to thrive?
I'll start because it actually ties to what I was going to say to the last question. I thrive in environments where you're always going to have assholes in every culture, right? But I thrive in environments where the cultures are oriented around enabling strengths versus criticizing gaps. And there's a difference, right? So everybody has lovely cultural things on walls, but I love environments where you develop people and you orient teams and leaders around what are you really good at? Not, let's spend more time on what you're bad at and how we can make it better. And so I'm not saying you necessarily have to have like strengths finder playbooks on every wall, which I know many companies do, but I have found in myself that I lean towards positive, right? And I lean towards strength building versus the negative of like, you're just not good at finance, as an example. So it's a tactic, but I think it also applies to finding great cultures that fit for you and just the self-awareness of, I know I'm good when people compliment me and when people help me, like put me in roles where I know I can be great, I thrive.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Ooh, let's go this way. Indra.
Oh, I would say, I thrive in very fast-paced, challenging environment. I can work under pressure and I do very well, and I love the fast pace. That's why I love construction, because there's always something new that I learned every day, and it's very fast paced. You're solving problems. There's issues from everything you can think of, from the legal, the technical, to the client interfacing, subcontracting interfacing. So to me, I enjoy a fast-paced environment where I can learn and I can gain more knowledge.
Absolutely awesome. Ramy?
I think I thrive in an environment where people have great ideas. It's a creative environment. Sometimes I just think of things one way, or I like one color, or there's certain things that I can't get out of my head. So to be in an environment where people have these fabulous ideas and they could share them, and it turns into something exciting for the next season, really works for me. And it makes me think like, oh, I never thought about that. And I love that. I love when someone else could bring me something that I never thought of, and it's a great idea.
Awesome. Ms. Kate?
I love to be around people that say, what if, why not? And that's where innovation comes from. And I love that in my company. And I still surround myself with people today that do things that have never been done before. And I've been a part of a lot of things that had never been done before. And as a woman, we talked about this earlier, I was the first woman in the room so many times in my career. And I can venture to say I'm probably older than the other ladies on this panel. And I know what it's like. But if you're always kind of thinking about, well, why not? Why not? Mm-hmm. And it'll take you into wonderful places, into things that maybe you were a little afraid to step into. But again, why not? What if?
Thank you. Ms. Kelly?
Thank you. I thrive in environments that really align to my core values and that I'm very proud of. I've worked at companies that I was less proud of and companies that I was more proud of. And that's really important to me. And for example, at Zoom, our core value is care. And we really tried to demonstrate that, especially over the last few years. And I'm very proud of the company and how what we did for the world during that time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to end with a quote here for us. Success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles with which they have overcome. And that was Booker T. Washington. Thank you all so much for overcoming all the barriers that you have to be where you are and for sharing your wisdom and advice and your story with us today. We want to thank you. Hope you all enjoyed hearing those stories as much as I did. So at this time, I want